Hello and welcome back to the Work Well podcast. Today in the show, I'm delighted to welcome Tracey Carey. Tracey is Global Benefits Manager at Indeed. Tracey has managed employee benefits for over 10 years across different industries, managing benefit strategy and harmonisation projects for mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures in markets from Canada to Turkey. Tracey joined Indeed in 2019 with a primary focus on the EMEA region. You'll probably remember, Indeed was one of the first companies to close all offices globally out of a duty of care to employees in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On March 6th, if you can remember back then, Indeed requested that all 10,000 colleagues work from home. Sit back and enjoy my conversation with Tracey Carey. Tracey, hello and welcome to the Work Well podcast.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So how are you, Tracey?
I'm good. Getting used to, I don't know if this is our new normal, but just sort of trucking along like the rest of us.
And you're working from home, needless to say. Maybe take us back a little bit. Tell us what life was like at Indeed pre-COVID, if you could. Kind of maybe bring us up to speed on what you do there and what life was like at Indeed.
Okay, so I joined Indeed in mid-November of last year. So I think I'm quite lucky in that I joined while we were still all in the office. It was great to be able to meet and get to know all the people that I'd be working with on a daily basis and to get a really good feel for the company, which was quite different in culture to where I'd come from. But at the same time, I'd say I sit on a global team. So we've always worked quite virtually in that from that perspective. So the move to work from home wasn't really a wrench because I was used to a lot of virtual meetings. As I say, I joined in November, and then towards the end of January, we moved to our beautiful new offices down in Capital Dock and officially opened those offices. It is an absolutely fantastic place to work. There's great on-site facilities, wonderful breakfast every morning. I can't match that at home. The on-site gym, which I walked by as often as I walk by my bike on a turbo trainer downstairs in my house, and a very social atmosphere in the office. So I think I miss all of that. And I think I also scored one of the best desks in the office. I was up on the top floor with a view right over Dublin Bay. So I miss that.
I can imagine, yeah, and that's right down at Capital Dock, the brand new building there, brand new, almost like a new hub in Dublin, and you have a pretty nice office on Stephen's Green as well. Actually, I used to work there in a different life, so that's a real change for yourself, for your colleagues that have had to kind of work remotely. And I think it was Indeed I remember hearing this in the news, that Indeed had asked all their colleagues globally and of course in Ireland to work from home, and I think that was March 6th, and that's kind of when the penny dropped for me that, okay, this isn't an international thing. This is on our shores now. That's kind of what made the penny drop for me when I heard that Indeed were asking everyone to work from home. What was that like internally?
It was interesting. We were so on March 6th we advised all employees globally that we were moving temporarily, or we thought it was temporarily, to working from home. So we closed all our offices globally. We'd almost had a trial run, as you may remember earlier in the year, not that long before that, we had closed a couple of our offices out of an abundance of caution, because we had a colleague whose close family members were being tested. And that colleague had traveled to a couple of different offices. So one of those offices was Dublin. Now, as it turned out, their relatives tested negative for the virus, but we had that trial run then of closing a couple of offices for a week. So we kind of knew what we needed to do. Some of my colleagues, my colleagues in facilities, in IT, our office management teams, they did an absolutely amazing job of making the transition to home as easy as it could be for the rest of us. So within the first week or so, I could order all the peripherals I needed to set up my home office. So my monitor, my keyboard, all of that kind of stuff, so that I could work from home. And that was shipped out to me. We were also all given a $500 stipend to set up our home offices. So use that to buy my office furniture and to set up the office that I'm sitting in now. And then when the work from home was extended, we've extended it globally to the end of July next year. We may open other offices, like our Dusseldorf office is now partially open for anybody who, has difficulty working from home, would prefer to be in the office. And we've had a very small take up. I think we only have 8 people apart from the office teams that need to be in there. We had planned to do that with the Dublin office as well, but with what's going on within the country and, being at level 3, we've postponed that for the time being. But nobody will need to go back into an office before July next year. So with that in mind, and with winter coming, the company has offered everybody a second $500 stipend. So for me, that will insulate the attic in my house, so I'm nice and warm as I work through the winter. But that's been a fantastic help for everybody, I think, working from home. And there's been huge efforts made to keep us connected with the office and to keep us sort of connected with our company culture.
That really is a fantastic benefit, isn't it? It's certainly one of the challenges I have faced is, just kind of setting up that home office, having that maybe an ergonomic seating arrangements, trying to find space, be it in the, as I was saying to you earlier, for whatever reason in my house, the laundry room seems to have turned into the office. It just works well. But having that stipend there, I'd say is a huge boost to anyone looking to invest in their home office. And I think many more of us will be doing so in the future. So that's a really great benefit, if you like. I've been reading recently, I think Indeed have kind of, I was going to say joined or followed suit, but I think we're one of the first to say now that you mentioned July, that everyone can work from home until July. But I think Indeed have announced recently that all staff, all colleagues can work from home indefinitely if they choose to.
Yeah, I think we realized very quickly that, the way the future of work is changing. And this has been, we've often said it internally, and you'll hear our Chief HR Officer, Paul Wolf, say it quite a bit, that this is a forced enormous experiment, for all of us globally. And it has proven things that I think we were, fairly confident of sort of beforehand, but that people work better and more efficiently when they're allowed flexibility. So what we've done we launched a global survey of all of our employees, asking them, what way they would like to work. So we have 3 options. So we have a fully remote option, a flex option, whereby you would go into the office a couple of days a week, or a fully office-based option. And we surveyed everybody to find out what their preferences were. And unsurprisingly, I think the most popular option was the flex option, where you get to keep that connection with your colleagues in the office, but you also have the flexibility to work from home when you need to. The remote option was obviously also very attractive. So we've launched that now, and we're busy bedding down, if there are specific roles that are required to be in the office, be it full-time or a couple of days a week, and what people's individual preferences are. But I think it'll certainly look very different as time goes on. It also means, and this is the thing that is great for a company that's trying to source talent, it also means that we can source our future employees or existing employees who are, you know, we're currently Dublin based. We all know property in Dublin is incredibly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If you would prefer to live in Kerry, not that Kerry, some parts of Kerry are cheaper, but they are more beautiful. My grandfather was from Kerry, so I'm a little biased. But you know, if you want to move outside of Dublin, you can, you know, or we can hire people who are in other parts of, you know, in other parts of the country, and that applies to all of the countries where we operate. So it actually gives us as a company more flexibility, and then also gives employees more flexibility to live, you know, where they would prefer within certain parameters.
Yeah, well, my grandmother is from Kerry, so I'd agree with you. I am partially biased as well, but I would absolutely agree with you there. And that it really does open up excellent opportunities, doesn't it, for an organization like Indeed, and then of course for the candidates as well, who may have been put off by, you know, living in Dublin, the Dublin prices, as you mentioned. But now there's opportunities for those people, no matter where they're based in the country, to apply for certain roles within Indeed or other organizations. So there's really great potential there.
Exactly, there is.
And, you know, I'm not surprised to hear the results of your survey as well. I ran a similar survey and I asked those questions as well. Would you prefer to work from home full time, from the office full time, or something in between? And it was overwhelmingly the majority of people were looking for that mixed, that blended approach, maybe 3 days in the office and 2 days from home. But I think, yeah, the flexible working environment is here to stay, isn't it?
It is, exactly. And I think because we've all been working from home since March, and I think everybody in the country has been working from home, you know, since not long after that, since lockdown, a lot of people have been. So we're equipped for it. You know, we're probably more equipped for it, you know, individually than we were before March, because we've set up our home offices, we've gotten used to it. I suppose with remote working from different parts of the country, that raises the question about our national broadband plan, and, whether or not that should be bumped up in priority. But you know, I think we're in a better place to proceed with that on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely. In terms of, so the fact that the majority of your staff now are working from home, have you been doing anything different to drive engagement or to support colleague well-being now that you're almost all entirely working remotely?
Yeah, well, we have a very strong employee experience team and a very strong diversity, equality and inclusion team. So two separate teams that work closely together. And they've been doing a lot to keep us all engaged. So we have various different Slack channels. We have a work from home views Slack channel. I get very jealous looking at what other people's views are, because we get wonderful ones from all around the world.
So the Kerry people again probably coming out on top there.
We've a few in some spectacular parts of the world now.
Right.
So you know, it's interesting actually seeing that. But then we have Slack channels for all sorts of different things. So we've one for the Dublin office, and we can find out what is going on virtually in the Dublin office. We have, you know, team coffee chats, that kind of thing. And we used to have a lot of on-site sort of wellness classes and fitness classes. They've now all moved virtually. And one that I might join this afternoon, which sounds fascinating, is a sound bath.
Oh.
Sound bath. So I don't know what that's like. I might be able to tell you the next time we speak.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's all fantastic that's all still accessible, and they're ways of sort of connecting with your colleagues that are not work related as well. So, and in terms of that engagement, we've had, and I think I said it the last time we spoke, we have weekly updates from HR leadership, so from our Chief HR Officer, from Paul Wolf, and we have a weekly Q&A with our CEO and our COO. That's been fantastic. I've never felt more connected with our global leadership team, our global senior leadership team, almost to the point where, they're almost asking them what they want at the bar when the pub's open.
Yeah, I'm hearing that quite a bit actually. Especially, I imagine it's very true for a company, an organization the size of Indeed, where I remember the senior leaders maybe in the States might have seemed quite far away, whereas now you're probably having sessions where you're kind of looking into their living room or their home office, and the dogs and the cats are there, and the kids just like everybody else. So I imagine it's a bit more intimate, and you're developing kind of stronger relationships as a result.
Exactly, very definitely. And they're also answering, they're answering all of the questions that employees ask. So each week, there's a Q&A session. You can enter your questions into the system. They get voted on by other employees just to make sure that there's no duplication. And a lot of the questions are, the types of things that you wouldn't usually, engage with your leadership team on, such as, I'm finding it difficult working from home. What can you help me out with? Or, there's a particular program. So it's not all very business related, which is quite nice. It's a great way of engaging personally with, all of the people in Indeed. And really fostering that sense of community.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you're breaking down barriers and building stronger relationships. And I imagine like having a bath or a sound bath with your colleagues and the management team is probably a great way of breaking down those kind of barriers.
Oh, now I've got a horrible image in my head about sound bath.
And it sounds like so Indeed are certainly doing a lot to support their colleagues at this time. How are you managing your own routine? Maybe routine first of all as you work from home, and then your own well-being as you work from home.
I suppose the routine in a way is the difficult bit, because there's, I have my standard morning routine and that's fine. But when it comes to the evening, it's very difficult for a time to just slip on by, because I don't have that bus to rush for that leaves at a certain time. So, I can sit at my desk and find that, I don't move until I get hungry. And at that stage, it's too late to cook any dinner. But I did acquire a new family member relatively early on in lockdown, a 4-legged one, a new dog. So she helps with the evening routine because she likes her evening walks.
And you need to walk, yeah.
So she makes sure that my work walk balance is well.
Very good. I imagine she would let you know if she was missing or if you weren't taking care of that walk as well.
Yes, she's behind me now and she's very quiet. But come 5 o'clock, she'll be chewing up my chair.
Right. I actually just came from another meeting where there was a dog that was not so quiet, so it was actually hard to conduct the meeting. But it's good to hear that she's certainly behaving there today.
She is.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we're not meeting at 5.
And tell me, outside of Indeed, I believe you previously managed a boatyard, and then you also when you closed the doors on that, you actually sailed around the world. That sounds quite different from your current role.
Yes, it was very different and very wonderful. And, I'm definitely, I know I'm very privileged to have been able to do it. So I managed the boatyard with my then partner, who became my husband, then my ex-husband. We're still friends. But so he's a boat builder. And it was many years ago. And I wanted office space in the boatyard. I was trying to run my own business. And I was told that I could have the office space rent free if I did some bookkeeping. And that turned into my business being over the shoulder and ending up working full time in the boatyard. Which, I'm a sailor, I'm very, I love boats, I love the sea. But I think very quickly any illusion about working in a boat yard being glamorous was dispelled. Anybody who's lived in an environment full of, or has existed in an environment full of fiberglass dust will tell you it's anything but glamorous, but very interesting at the same time. And during that period, all the period that I was there, we were building our own boat. So that was the last one out the doors before, you know, the boat yard was closed down and the site was sold off. It's now apartments. And we sailed off into the wild blue yonder, and got to visit some absolutely amazing places that I would otherwise have not seen.
Fantastic. And was that boatyard in Dublin? Was it in Ireland?
Yeah, it was in Malahide.
Okay, lovely. And so you were working, building your own boat, and it was the last boat. So you sailed off into the sunset. Were you sailing for long? Was it a long trip?
On and off for 10 years.
Oh my goodness, right.
We originally had no plan to come back, but you know, life throws you curveballs and plans change. But so we initially went into the Mediterranean, and we spent 2 years there. We sailed down the Red Sea, which was a phenomenal experience, and then down the east coast of Africa, spent 3 years on and off in South Africa, and then up to South America and the Caribbean. I came home from there, but it was just amazing. And as I say, got to see some amazing places, meet some amazing people, and a lot that really changed my perspective on life.
I can imagine. And were you were docking at certain ports, and you were spending time there, and then you were getting back out on the boat. Would you spend much time docked? Would it depend on the location?
It would depend on the location, and you know, as I say, like we spent 3 years in South Africa. Left the boat there for I came home for a year and then went back. But you know, we get to become part of a local community. We'd also spent the boat had been in Kenya for a year and a half. Once again, we came back for a year of that, but we were there for 6 months. And it was, you really get under the hood of a local community and a country. And I'd say that was, for me, the most fascinating thing about the entire trip was people and community. You know, sort of it's always a challenge and a great sort of string to your bow to have sailed across oceans. But the most memorable thing is, you know, the people we meet and the communities that we got to engage with.
I can imagine it's such a long period of time, and all the different people and communities you would have met. The limited experience I have of sailing, it was I was lucky enough to have a career break, a 2.5-year career break. It's a good few years ago now, but probably the highlight of that for me was I had a 7-day boat trip, a sailboat trip from Cartagena in Colombia. We visited the San Blas Islands. I imagine it's one of the places you stopped off on, and on our way to Panama. But we spent quite a bit of time around the San Blas Islands, such a beautiful archipelago. And I think they say there's it's 365 islands there, so one island for every day of the year. Yeah. As they like to say, and kind of autonomous Kuna Indians living there, lovely people. And that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. I can imagine multiplying that by almost 10 years must be pretty incredible.
It is. And actually a boat that we spent, so we obviously became friends of ours. I know so many people whose surnames, as far, you know, that I applied their names of their boats as their surnames. Most of us sailors do that. But there was a German couple who we spent a lot of time with when we were cruising. They were sort of our cruising buddies, and they actually now charter that trip that you did. They have a boat called Montaka.
Okay.
And that's exactly the trip that they do.
Yeah. It's a lovely trip. Yeah, it's Delphin Solo was the name of the boat that I took. It was a Turkish couple, actually. Yeah, but it's a lovely trip to do for anyone if you're ever in that part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually something I haven't done.
Oh,
So
have you not? Okay.
I might book myself into Montaka.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly worth the trip. And something from sailing the world to the world of politics. You also ran in local elections recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so I'm a member of the Social Democrats, and I contested the local elections in Swords last year. God, we had election after election. I keep trying to
Yeah.
remember when were they all. So that was early last year, and then the Fingal by-election last November. So that was a bit of a challenge because that election was called as I was starting my new job in Indeed. But I was due to then also represent the party in the general election for Fingal. But my job was so new at that stage, and I'd already taken some time off for the by-election, so made the prudent decision to defer my general election run until the next time round. But it's certainly something I'll always be involved in. I also sit on the party's policy committee at the moment. So
Okay, so you're still heavily involved. You're still heavily involved. You're still something you'll definitely look at again in the future, by the sounds of it.
definitely, yeah. And I think, it ties in largely to a lot of my travels and the experiences I had with different people and sort of the challenges that different people have. And no matter, sort of we have problems in this country, but I've seen poverty that we we just don't understand in places like Africa. So it's my politics is pretty much driven by a passion for fairness, equality, and caring for people. Um, and the interesting thing in my current role in Indeed is that that matches up fairly well with the company's values. And I think part of, if I have another election campaign, um, part of my rallying call will be, I've been able to um, satisfy those passions within a corporate environment. So why can't we do it for a country, a society?
Absolutely, and you've certainly got a fantastic mix of experiences there to bring to the table. So there's an awful lot to offer.
Exactly.
And my final question then, Tracey. I mean, we've kind of touched on it already. I mean, what does the future of work look like? Is it that flexible, open work environments where the employee, the candidate, kind of decides what their working day looks like, or does it depend very much on the organization?
I think to a large extent, it does depend on the organization because, we're a tech company. So it's a lot easier for us to work from home than, than other companies. You can't work retail from home.
Yeah.
Well, online shopping, I suppose, is changing
Hmm.
it's changing that a lot. And obviously you can't work hospitality from home.
Yeah.
So it very much depends on your sector. Um, but I would challenge some more traditional companies in different industries. Um, I would challenge a perspective, if they have one, that all of their roles or most of their roles need to be office based, because I think we've proven, and this global experiment has proven, that people are productive at home.
Yeah.
Um, it's I'd say it's probably easier to be productive at home in some ways because there's no water cooler chats. Um, but yeah, I think we will see a change. And how that pans out over the next decade or so will be really interesting. Will we see a change in office footprints, for example?
Yeah.
Will we see a demographic change in where people live? Will it make cities like Dublin more affordable because there won't be such demand for rental accommodation for house purchase? So in one way, I'm thinking, will we end up with a more equal society because we'll be less concentrated in certain areas and in certain cities?
Yeah, it's certainly, of course, I mean, nobody wanted this to happen, but if there are any positives to take from it, I think there will be. Maybe it is the kind of the wake up that the work environment needed, and some organizations needed to get real and to support their people. So hopefully we'll see some of those benefits coming down the line.
Exactly.
But Tracey, listen, thanks so much for your time. You've been really generous with your time. Where can people go to find out more about you and the work that you do?
Well, LinkedIn for the work that I do. And I would always say that a lot of what I share on LinkedIn is stolen. So from our Chief HR Officer, Paul Wolf, shares a fair bit on LinkedIn. So I'd follow him, follow Indeed on LinkedIn. For me personally, if you want to hear my political rantings, Twitter is the best of those, where I rant about Twitter and share pictures of my dog. Yeah, so that would be mostly it. And, follow Indeed.
Fantastic. And we'll include all of those details in the show notes. Tracey, thanks so much again for your time.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Nice to
Take care.
You too.